everyone, I am Melissa Brock. I am the owner and lead designer here at South of STEM, and today I want to go over a really quick and easy tutorial with you, showing you how to use Hearth and Soul's amazing wicker basket. This basket is the Matabi basket. It is a beautiful rattan basket that has been painted with white and almost like a gray blue. I'll come in close so you can see it. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it. And when I saw it, I said, we need to design in that. It's perfect for the summer. It's so on trend right now, this natural, neutral color palette that everybody is loving. And there's a really simple way to be able to design in a basket if you want to. If you have a bowl or have seen one at Hearth and Soul that you love, we're just going to use that inside as our vessel so that all of our flowers and stems can drink. Now, my bowl that I have at the house, as you can see, is just a little bit short of where I want the bowl to sit. So I have what's called a loamy dish. It's just plastic. You may have one of these. Sometimes pots sit in them, or if you have a terracotta water catcher, the one that sits underneath the pot, that's perfect. I'm gonna flip it so that the bowl is upside down. I'm gonna put it in the bottom. That's gonna give me just that extra inch that I need in order to have my bowl perfectly right aligned with the top of the basket so that I can use a little bit less product and a little bit shorter stems than having to go super deep into the basket. So I'm going to grab my bowl here and just gently set it in. And you can kind of see in the video how that plane is just nicely sitting right there. Now the next thing that I'm going to do and that you'll need is some chicken wire. It was just a square piece of chicken wire that I've taken end over end and folded and then tucked in the corners. I'll see if I can get closer so you can see. So that I've made basically like a skeleton system or an armature for the flowers. Now the purpose of this is to help me stabilize stems and use less product. And you'll love this too, so that when you're at the grocery store, if you're shopping, you won't need to buy as much, because without this in our vessel, you would need so much volume of flowers, because once you put the stem in, right, it's literally going to do this. Let me see. There's the stems. It's not going to stand, right? It's going to fall to the side. So what this does is it's going to allow it to stand. And if I want it to stick up straight, it can stick up straight. So this is amazing. That's just an example. You'll see once we get started. But I just want to go over what you'll need as we are going around. So if you don't have chicken wire, totally understandable. Not many people have chickens running around their house or have used it for fencing. Then what you're going to do is, if you have it, you can take floral tape. Looks a little bit like duct tape, works a little bit like duct tape, but it's waterproof. And what you're going to do is, instead of having this grid, right? The chicken wire makes a grid pattern. You would just simply make a grid using tape. So you would tape a strip, tape a strip, tape a strip, all going one direction, and then tape strips going in the other direction to literally make a grid. That would act like your armature, which is great if you're in a bind, but the reason that I prefer to use chicken wire is because it has double the stabilization. So there's a row on top keeping that stem in place, and then a row on bottom keeping that stem in place. So it's double the stability and double the ability for it to do its job and hold the stem right where I want it. But I am going to tape just the top so that the chicken wire does not pop out of the using the tape, but just to hold this little guy in place. So I'm going to do one across, and I'm going to push down on the sides, and then I'm going to do one going the opposite direction. Once again, added stability. I do not want this little guy popping out in the middle of our event. So there you have it. That is your vessel and armature. I am going to put on my apron so that I don't get too dirty, and also because it's got pockets, which are my best friend, because as you can see, I set things down and then I lose them. So if you have an apron, it's great. Protect your clothes, and then also keep your scissors, your snippers, your clippers really close so that you don't lose them, which I tend to do, especially when you get a bunch of stems everywhere. So those are your hard goods, right? So we have our beautiful basket from Hearth and Soul. We have a bowl. I also happen to have a little lift, which is just a loamy dish. It's plastic, sitting at the bottom. It's acting like a little pedestal, a little foot to give my bowl just a little bit of oomph. You may have one at home, or you might want to buy one from Hearth and Soul. That's the perfect size. This basket, I believe, is 18 inches wide as well. And those are your hard goods. In addition, you'll need some snippers. If you don't have floral scissors, that's okay. You can use scissors, but just try to use really, 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 really sharp scissors. So that is your hard goods that you'll need for this awesome project. Okay, I'm back. Now I want to go over your product, the parts that you are actually going to be using to design as your florals. That's one bunch of wax, one bunch of carns, one bunch of mums, and then I've got 2 bunches of the variegated pizzo. Okay, I heard you groaning. You don't like carnations, but let me just tell you, these carnations are going to be transformed today for our arrangement. So one of the things that you can do with carnations is you can pinch them just a little bit right underneath the petals and give it a little bit of a twist. That's going to loosen them up. Then you can sort of fluff them out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pluck a few from the center. If you want to save these, you can. They would make really fun confetti. You don't have to save them. You can compost them. I promise this is not going to hurt any of the other petals. They're not going to fall out. But what this is going to do is give you a little bit more loose and airy look to your carnations. So here is a side by side so that you can see. And if you want to go more, you can pull a little bit more. Just going to pull one more because I ripped him. Those petals aren't going anywhere. You haven't damaged the flower. Now it will shorten their life a little bit, but we're going to be using our arrangement for an outdoor soiree, a summer soiree. So pretty much it's only going to be good for one day because it's super hot outside. But that's also why I love carnations, because they will hold up for your event outside. So, pulled center, same carnation, different look. We are going to continue on now with our floral arrangement for our summer soiree. You just watched us transform our carnations into these amazing flowers that don't even resemble carnations, and you're going to love it. So, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more water to my vessel so that the flowers can drink all night. I like it to be pretty high unless I'm traveling, but I'm going to assume that you're at home and that you're going to want to fill this up maybe a thumb's width. So just the length of your thumb. I'm going to fill it to there so that I have plenty of water. And so, if you remember when we started, the first thing we did was we made a grid, or we were using our chicken wire. So what I like to tell people when they're first learning, or when they're asking me questions like how do I start as a beginner, I say grid, green, then group. So what that means, right, grid, we're going to grid our bowl or our vessel, whatever we're using, so that we have an armature, something to hold our stems up so they stay where we want them to stay and not where gravity would like them to go. Then green. I like to fill my bowl in with greens first. It's one of those things that for me feels right. You can do it however you want, but it's what I like to do. And when I'm filling in with greens, what it can also help me to do is set the limitations for scale. You and I both know that this piece is going to go on the table outside where everybody's going to be eating. So I don't want it to be too tall, right? Because if I'm sitting across from you at the table, I want to be able to still see you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it a little bit cascading from one side to the other and then out and around. The table that we're using is round, so this arrangement will be much more symmetrical on all sides than something that we would normally do for a banquet style table, which obviously is more of a two-sided arrangement, and then you can cascade that way. But from every angle, people are going to be sitting around, so they're going to be able to see all the flowers, so we're going to want things on every side. So you would grid, then you would green, and then with your florals, you would group. And what I mean by that is don't make it so matchy-matchy, like one red flower, one red flower, one red flower, like at all stations on a clock, like if you were going to do it 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. The brain and the eye don't necessarily love that aesthetic. You can do it, but the brain really likes, and it's much more pleasing to the eye, to have groups and clusters of things, to add some visual interest and line for the eye to follow, spaces where it likes to look first and then rest and then travel and follow somewhere else. So that's why I like to say grid, green, group, and you're gorgeous. So let's try it out now and let's see how it goes for us. When you are processing, we use that word a lot, process, what it basically means is I'm just cleaning my stems. I already had snipped the ends when it went into my bucket. That's part of the process, right? Part of taking care and hydrating the stem. What I like to do though is for woody stems, things that are really tough, is you give them a fresh snip and then you cut them up. So that kind of splits the stem. And with woody stems, this helps them take up a lot more water so that they stay healthy and hardy. You don't want any of your leaves to start falling off. So this is really good. This one's good. And then I'm going to show you, I'm just going to stick them in. And what you can't see, well maybe you can in the video, is that he's staying right where I want him. want to take this arrangement inside if you think it's going to last, if it's not a super hot day. If you want it to last long, you do not want a single leaf below the water line. No leaves below the line, okay? Because what that does, the leaves, as they break down and decompose, they add bacteria to the water. And then your stems are going to try to drink, and they don't like yucky water. So don't do it. Don't have any leaves below the line. This will go pretty quick for me, as I'm going to be filling this in. See, this little guy's too short. If this were a wedding and I had purchased all this product for your wedding, he'd be perfect for like a little boutonniere or maybe some corsage work. So if you're looking at getting into florals, we typically don't throw things away. I could save that, put it in the cooler, put it in the fridge. And nothing would get wasted. So like I said, I'm going for a more asymmetric look. I don't want it to be really roundy moundy. I want it to kind of cascade over the sides. That's what I would like. And so as I'm sticking the stems in, I'm trying to be conscious of height so that when you're sitting, you can sort of gaze through and not be interrupted by the florals. Another thing you can do is if you have like a vegetable peeler, you can peel back some of the bark. That'll help the stems, these woody stems, take up more water. So again, no leaves below the line. That's what I do not want. No leaves below the line. So one of the things that we're going to try to do is cover the armature or your tape or your grid and the chicken wire with some greens so that it's not as visible. It's not visible to guests. The armature, the mechanics, the things that are hidden behind the scenes are kind of like your undergarments, not necessarily meant to be seen. So we want to try to hide them. He's long. I like him. Again, I'm just removing leaves that I know would go below the line, the water line, if gentle with yourself. Even professionals, they place a stem, get designing, it's not working. You can take it out and move it around wherever you need. Okay, so do not feel like, oh, I put that there, now I have to live with it. No, you don't. You can take it out, you can move it. There's nothing keeping it from being there, and no one will ever know unless you're recording yourself like I am. No one will ever know. Since I don't have this arrangement on a Lazy Susan, which you can do, it's nice, so you don't have to walk around and check and see what can be seen and what can't be seen, but I am going to need to walk around to check. And imagine that I'm sitting at the table. What am I going to see if I'm a guest? Am I going to see any of the mechanics peeking through? And I don't want that. And I like that length. I don't want to go further than this because I know then there's going to be a glass here, a plate. Don't necessarily want things hanging over to fall in or touch or feel crowded. I don't want your space to feel crowded when you're sitting at the table. Steps, right? Grid, green, and now we're going to group. I am going to add a little bit more filler with this wax flower. It's not so much a focal flower, right? It's going to kind of sit and dance in the background. So I'm just going to, and with this, you don't necessarily have to cut it just like with the woody stems. It has a very woody stem. Again, no leaves. They have like these little needles. No leaves below the line. And they're just going to dance in the arrangement. As you're working, you become more familiar with flowers. You'll realize that some have likes, some have dislikes. Wax flower is pretty hardy. There's not a whole lot that it doesn't like or won't tolerate, but the needles, kind of like pine needles, will shed on you. So it's one of those that I don't like to leave out for a really long time, because then it just starts to get messy. And even if the greens on some of the stems that I pulled don't have any flowers, I'm still adding it because the contrast and texture of those needles with the variegated pittosporum adds a lot of visual interest, and I really like that. I really adore having multiple layers of foliage, not just letting these ones come out with the same line as the arrangement. So I'm keeping some longer ones to follow that same line over here. Lovely. So as you can see, it's going fairly fast. It's not taking a super long time. And once you get the hang of it, it'll go really quickly for you. And I'm just checking and making sure that everything is actually in the water. My stems are long enough that it's not too much of a problem, but obviously something you want to keep an eye on, and the water level as you're arranging. And if you're making this the day before, then you'll want to refill with water. Check it. Maybe leave yourself a little spot. I'm going to cut him down one more. He was up too high. Alright, so my side is looking pretty good. And then I'm going to come around to the front in just a second and do some more filling. Let's check. So again, these pieces that I'm kind of tossing would not normally be tossed. Normally they could be saved, salvaged, used for a boutonniere or crown work, corsage work. Basically, we try to use everything possible so that nothing goes to waste as much as we can. And then whatever extra you have, if you have some little bud vases, you could always put them in a bud vase. Okay. So we had foliage, filler. Now we're going to do our focal flower, and that is this mum. He's beautiful. I love him. Once again, no leaves below the water line. So I have a stripper here. I'm going to strip. You do not need one of these, but it is flexible and it has some little teeth on it. And you can really quickly strip the leaves and foliage off of a plant. So again, I'm looking at, so see this stem? It's not perfectly straight. I actually love that because he's going to go great over here. He's got just enough curve to go right where I want him to go. And you're just going to look for a little opening because we're getting a little bit full now. And I need to cut just a little bit more so that it sits. Now, when you're cutting your stems, if you noticed, it was cut at a 45-degree angle. Okay, not blunt, 45-degree angle. That way, if my stem ends up sitting right on the bottom of the vessel, it can still drink. It's got all that area, surface area, to take up water. If you were to cut it straight, then it could get blocked. All right, love that. So if this were not going to be in a solid vessel like this, I would do more work on these stems. I would clean them better. But no one's ever going to see this. It's not going in a bouquet. It's not going in a clear vase where you need to, really take your knife and cut away all those little knobs, which is what you would do if this was going into a clear vase. But for us, for our quick purposes, it is just fine. The other thing that I'm doing with my focal flowers is they're at different depths. That's going to give you some really good visual interest. If everything was on the same plane, your eye would be overwhelmed. So that depth adds an element to your design. So do not think that everything has to be exactly the same. You're going to want them to come out. And someone had asked me recently what the trick to getting that depth was. Was it having more flowers deeper? But the actuality is you would like to pull the flowers out towards you, and that's going to give you a lot more of that visual interest that you're looking for. So see how I'm kind of grouping this. Let me see if I can pull this guy out just a little bit more. I'm not doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not doing that. This is what is more pleasing to the eye, and there are a lot more rules in design that I could get into, but I'll save that for a master class. For now, though, this is what you want to do. Now remember, everybody's going to be sitting on all sides, so I'm not going to design it to only have one face. I want it to be pleasing to everyone sitting at the table. And sometimes when you get in going like this, you're going to hit a stem and it won't go in. That's fine. You just give it a little twist, a little shimmy. You can see some of the other stems moved on me. Let me cut that 1 more inch. And that's perfectly natural, normal. It's what it's going to want to do as it gets crowded in there. Right? We've got a lot going on. literally cannot find anywhere else. And for me as a designer, that is a really special treat. I love being able to have the opportunity to partner with them, design in their vessels. Obviously this is a basket, right, that they have in stock. And I absolutely loved it. And here we are today, designing in it for our summer soiree. And it is perfect for our purposes. One more of this beautiful guy, and he's gonna go right here in the middle, I think, or near the middle, not exactly in the middle, because I do like when I'm designing something bigger like this to have a little bit of negative space so that your eye can rest. And there's a few other design principles going on that you probably aren't aware, but you just know. I like that. My eye really likes that. That's really pretty. I'm going to go down just a little bit more deeper in so that he's not obstructing anybody's view. Just gonna find the right spot. Beautiful. So I'm just gonna give him a quick turn so you can see if you're sitting on that side or this. You're on the end and then back again. So we've grouped them, right? Grouped, grouped, grouped. They're not perfectly spread out. Now comes the fun. What should we call them? Because they're not our normal carnations. They are our fancy, beautiful, modified, transformed carns. And so these I'm going to use very sparingly, right? Because the red is our pop of color. The dominant colors are more neutral, the greens and the whites, and I only want to have a few pops of the red, so I'm not going to use it as heavily. Let's see. I'd love one to come out and kiss the guest so that they can get that beautiful view that we saw. That fun center. mess here. All this gets put in the compost though. Just pulling out a few more so you can see how lovely. Alright friends, let's see if the Banksia is going to make it in. I am thinking perhaps not this go round. But there you have it. Super simple, super fabulous arrangement for your summer soiree. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that you'll tune in for more, and stay tuned for more fun offerings that we're going to have as we partner with Hearth and Soul. Have a great evening everybody, and I'll see you this summer.